The mafia boss had entered his own restaurant like a ghost. No guards. No expensive car at the front. No one knew he was there. Victor DeLuca, the feared mafia boss whose name could silence a room, had come in secretly to hear the truth with his own ears. For weeks, money had been disappearing. Staff had been quitting. And someone inside his empire was hiding a dangerous secret. But before he could reach the manager's office, a broken voice stopped him cold. It came from the storage hallway behind the kitchen. A poor maid was crying. Not the quiet kind of crying people hide from the world. This was the kind that came from a shattered heart. The kind that made a powerful man freeze mid-step. Then Victor heard a little child whisper, "Mama, please don't cry. I'm hungry." And in that moment, everything changed. Stay with us until the end of this emotional story. Victor DeLuca did not usually walk. Men like him arrived with engines, with bodyguards, with silence spreading ahead of them like a warning. But that night, the feared mafia boss pulled the collar of his dark coat higher and stepped out of an unmarked car 2 streets away from DeLuca Palace, the most profitable restaurant in his empire. Rain had just stopped. The pavement still shimmered under the city lights. From the outside, the restaurant looked perfect: golden windows, polished glass, wealthy guests laughing behind crystal walls. It looked like success. But Victor had not come to admire success. For 3 weeks, whispers had been crawling through the city. Cash missing from the books. Good workers suddenly fired. Suppliers complaining they had been threatened in his name. One old chef, loyal for 12 years, had vanished without even collecting his final pay. None of it sounded right. Victor trusted numbers, but more than numbers, he trusted instinct. And his instinct was screaming. So he entered through the service alley instead of the front door. The smell of garlic, butter, and grilled meat hit him first. Then came the kitchen noise, pans clashing, cooks shouting, plates moving fast under hot lights. No one looked twice at the tall man in the dark coat. In the back corridor, people saw what they expected to see. A supplier, an inspector, a man with business. Not the owner whose face appeared only in whispered stories and newspaper rumors. Victor moved slowly, his eyes cold and observant. He noticed things immediately. A dishwasher with trembling hands. A waitress wiping tears before carrying a tray. A young busboy flinching when the floor manager barked his name. Fear lived here. Not discipline. Not pressure. Fear. Victor's jaw tightened. He passed the dry storage room and heard a loud male voice from the office at the end of the corridor. "If she comes back, throw her out," the man snapped. "I don't care if she begs. Thieves don't get second chances." Victor paused in the shadows. That voice belonged to Marco Bellini, the restaurant manager. Victor himself had promoted him 6 months earlier after a recommendation from Sophia, his elegant, charming fiancée, who always claimed she understood people. Now Marco sounded less like a manager and more like a bully wearing borrowed power. Before Victor could move closer, another sound reached him. A woman crying. Soft at first, then breaking. It came from the narrow hallway behind the kitchen, near the cleaning supply closet. A place no guest would ever see. Victor turned and walked toward it, each step slower than the last. The hallway was dim, lit by one flickering bulb. There, on a low wooden bench beside buckets and folded aprons, sat a young woman in a faded cleaning uniform. Her face was buried in her hands. Her shoulders shook with helpless, exhausted sobs. At her feet sat 2 small children. Twins. A little boy and a little girl, no older than 5. The boy was thin and serious, his tiny hand resting protectively on his mother's knee as if he were trying to become stronger than his age allowed. The girl clutched a worn stuffed rabbit to her chest, her round eyes wet with fear but still full of gentle innocence. "Mama," the little girl whispered, climbing onto the bench, "please don't cry anymore." The boy looked down at a paper bag beside them. Empty. His voice was quiet. Too quiet for a child. "Did they fire you?" The woman tried to answer, but her throat closed. She pressed both hands over her mouth as fresh tears spilled down her cheeks. Victor froze. He had seen men bleed without blinking. He had watched rivals beg, had buried enemies, had built an empire by never letting emotions slow his judgment. But this? A poor maid, crying in his restaurant. 2 hungry children at her feet. And then the boy asked the question that stopped the mafia boss's heart for one long, terrible second. "Mama, are we going to sleep outside again?" Urfel Mafia Boss, who ruled half the city, now stood completely still, listening to a conversation that was never meant for his ears. On the wooden bench, the poor maid wiped her tears with the sleeve of her worn uniform. Her name was Elena. Her eyes were red and swollen, but she forced a small smile as she looked at the twins sitting beside her. "No, Matteo," she whispered softly to the boy. "We are not sleeping outside." Matteo didn't answer right away. The small boy's dark eyes were serious, far older than 5 years should allow. He looked down at the empty paper bag again. "But we have no food," he said quietly. Beside him, his twin sister Lily hugged her stuffed rabbit tighter. "Mama, my tummy hurts," she murmured. The word struck Victor like a punch. Elena quickly pulled both children into her arms. "I know, my little angels," she said, her voice shaking. "Mama will fix everything. I promise." But the promise sounded fragile, like glass ready to shatter. For a moment, no one spoke. The only sounds were distant kitchen noise and Elena trying to hold her tears back. Then Matteo asked the question Victor had not expected. "Why did they say you stole money?" Elena's body stiffened. Victor felt his chest tighten. "Stole?" Elena lowered her eyes to the floor. "I didn't steal anything," she said softly. "You know your mama would never do that." "Then why did they fire you?" Lily asked, her voice small and confused. Elena hesitated. In the shadows, Victor leaned forward slightly. The answer mattered. "They said, someone saw me near the manager's office yesterday," Elena explained slowly. "Marco told everyone money was missing from the safe. He said the cleaning lady must have taken it." Matteo frowned. "But you were cleaning the tables with me," the boy said quickly. "I helped you wipe the glasses." Elena nodded, brushing his hair gently. "Yes, you did." Lily's little face suddenly filled with worry. "Then why didn't they listen to you?" Elena looked away. "Because no one listens to poor people." She didn't say the words out loud, but the truth hung heavy in the air. "Marco said the decision came from the top," Elena whispered finally. "He said the owner wants thieves out immediately." Victor's jaw slowly tightened in the darkness. The owner. That meant him. Except Victor had never ordered anything like that. The Mafia boss felt anger rise quietly inside his chest. Elena continued speaking, unaware that the very man whose name had been used against her was standing just a few steps away. "I begged him to check the cameras," she said, her voice breaking again. "But he refused." Matteo's fists clenched. "He's lying," the little boy said. Elena sighed weakly. Maybe someone needed someone to blame," she said. Lily looked up at her mother with wide eyes. "Was it the scary lady again?" Elena froze. Victor's eyes narrowed. "Lily," Elena said quickly, "don't say things like that." "But she was shouting yesterday," the little girl insisted. "She said you shouldn't be here." Matteo nodded. "The rich lady in the red dress," he added. Victor's heart dropped. Sophia. His fiancée. He remembered the night before, Sophia visiting the restaurant, walking around with Marco like she owned the place. She had always claimed she was helping improve the business. But now a terrible thought crept into Victor's mind. Elena gently held Lily's hands. "She's important," Elena said quietly. "We must not talk badly about important people." "But she was mean," Lily whispered. Matteo looked at his mother again. "What are we going to do now?" Elena took a deep breath. "I will find another job," she said. "But you worked here every night," Matteo said. "Yes," Elena nodded. "For 2 years. And they still didn't believe you." Her silence answered the question. For a moment, the twins sat quietly beside their mother. Then Lily leaned against Elena's shoulder. "Mama," she whispered, "I wish someone strong could help you." Behind the wall of shadows, Victor DeLuca slowly closed his eyes. Because the powerful mafia boss had just realized something terrifying. Someone inside his own empire was using his name to destroy innocent lives. And he had been completely unaware. The old apartment. He already knew what that meant. "No," Elena said softly. Matteo frowned. "Why not?" Elena took a slow breath, like someone preparing to say something painful. "Because we can't go back there." "Did the landlord get angry again?" Lily asked. Elena nodded. "He wants the rent we couldn't pay last month." Matteo lowered his head. "That's because they cut your hours here." "Yes. And now they fired you." Elena looked at her son with tired eyes. "You're too smart for your age." The boy didn't smile. "I just listen." In the shadows, Victor felt something uncomfortable settle in his chest. The twins weren't loud or wild like most children their age. Mateo was quiet and protective, already trying to act like a man. Lily was gentle, soft-hearted, the kind of child who still believed people were good. They reminded Victor of something he hadn't thought about in years. Family. Elena slowly stood up from the bench. Come, she said gently. We should leave before the manager sees us here. But Mateo grabbed her hand. Mama, wait. What is it? The boy pointed toward the restaurant dining hall. You forgot something. Elena looked confused. What? Mateo hesitated. The necklace. Elena's eyes widened slightly. What necklace? The one the rich lady dropped yesterday. For the first time, Victor's body went completely still. Elena quickly knelt beside her son. Mateo, you must not say that. But I saw it, the boy said. It fell from her purse when she was shouting. Lily nodded. Yes, the shiny one. Victor's heart began beating slower. More carefully. Where? Elena asked cautiously. Mateo pointed toward the hallway floor near the manager's office. You picked it up, he said. You said you would give it back today. Elena closed her eyes briefly. Yes, she admitted quietly. You told me it looked expensive, Mateo continued. It did. Maybe that's why they said you stole. The words hung in the air like thunder waiting to strike. Elena's shoulders slumped slightly. I tried to give it back this morning, she said. But Marco wouldn't even let me enter the office. He just started shouting. And then he said you stole money, Lily whispered. Elena nodded. Yes. In the shadows, Victor's fists slowly tightened. Pieces of the puzzle were beginning to fall into place. Yesterday, Sophia had visited the restaurant wearing that exact diamond necklace he bought her in Paris. A rare piece worth more than most people made in years. If it had gone missing, Victor's jaw hardened. Marco would have panicked. And Sophia? She hated embarrassment, especially in public. Suddenly, Victor remembered the phone call she made last night. Handle the situation, she had said calmly. I don't want problems. At the time, Victor had thought she meant something small. Now the meaning felt much darker. Elena gently held Mateo's face. You must promise me something, she said. What? You must never accuse people without proof. But Mama. No, she said softly. We will solve this quietly. Mateo looked unconvinced. What if they never listen? Elena smiled sadly. Then we move forward. But that's not fair. No, she whispered. It isn't. Behind them, the Mafia Boss slowly stepped out of the darkness. His voice cut through the hallway like a blade. Maybe it's time someone finally listened. Elena gasped. The twins turned at the same time. Standing at the end of the dim hallway was a tall man in a dark coat, his presence filling the narrow space like a sudden storm. The flickering light above them revealed a strong jawline, cold eyes, and a calm expression that carried quiet authority. Elena's heart skipped. She didn't recognize him immediately, but something about him felt powerful, dangerous. Sir, we were just leaving, she said quickly, pulling the twins closer. Mateo stepped slightly in front of his sister, protective even at 5 years old. Victor DeLuca walked closer. Slow, controlled. The powerful mafia boss who had built an empire on fear now looked at the poor maid and her children with a strange heaviness in his eyes. I heard everything, he said. Elena's face drained of color. I'm sorry, she whispered. We didn't mean to cause trouble. You didn't, Victor replied calmly. He looked down at the twins. Mateo stared back carefully, studying him the same way Victor studied his enemies. Lily, however, simply held her stuffed rabbit and peeked shyly from behind her mother's arm. What are your names? Victor asked. The boy answered first. I'm Mateo. And I'm Lily, the little girl said softly. Victor nodded once. Strong names. Then his gaze returned to Elena. You worked here 2 years? Yes. And you were fired today for stealing money. Elena lowered her eyes. That's what they said. Victor's voice hardened slightly. Did you steal anything? No. She didn't hesitate. The answer came with quiet dignity, not desperation. Victor believed her instantly. Do you still have the necklace your son mentioned? Elena hesitated before reaching carefully into the pocket of her cleaning apron. From inside, she pulled out a small velvet pouch. Her hands trembled as she opened it. Inside was a diamond necklace that sparkled even under the weak hallway light. Victor recognized it immediately. Sophia's necklace. The one she had lost. The one worth more than this entire building's monthly payroll. Victor slowly took the pouch and studied it for a moment. Then he closed his hand around it. Stay here, he said. Elena looked confused. Sir. Stay. The word carried quiet authority. Victor turned and walked down the hallway toward the main restaurant floor. Within seconds, the atmosphere of the building changed. When Victor DeLuca entered a room, people felt it. The kitchen staff fell silent first. Then the waiters. Marco Bellini looked up from the bar counter and froze. Mr. DeLuca, the manager stammered. Victor's voice was calm. Call everyone. The room filled quickly. Cooks, waiters, dishwashers. Even a few surprised guests looked over curiously. Finally, Sophia appeared from the office hallway in her elegant red dress. Victor, she said, startled. You didn't tell me you were coming tonight. Victor didn't smile. Instead, he lifted the diamond necklace. Sophia's expression changed instantly. My necklace, she said quickly. Marco told me a maid stole it. The room went silent. Victor's eyes moved slowly between them. Interesting, he said quietly. Marco swallowed. Yes, we caught her near the office yesterday. Victor tilted his head slightly. But she tried to return it this morning. Marco blinked. That's not what happened. No. Victor stepped closer. You fired her without checking the cameras. Marco said nothing. Victor's gaze then shifted to Sophia. And you asked Marco to handle the situation. Sophia forced a smile. I just didn't want drama. Of course. Victor turned toward the kitchen hallway. Elena, he called. The poor maid slowly stepped forward with the twins. The staff began whispering immediately. Victor raised his hand. Silence returned. Then the Mafia boss spoke the words that would change everything. The cleaning lady you accused is innocent. Marco's face turned pale. Sophia's smile vanished. And Victor continued coldly. But the people who used my name to destroy her life, his eyes hardened, are fired.